what are the things that look like are his passions, and spend a minute just chatting about that. Some will think, well, that's just a waste of time. But in fact, it's not.
No,
Because at the end of the day, if you do that, and if you're half an hour late in delivery, you'll have bought some insurance and you'll be in a position to still have a satisfied customer, even though you might not have had everything go off without a hitch.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Golden Wrench Podcast, where I get to talk to anybody and everybody that I want to talk about when it comes to the fixed ops side of the business. And boy, am I excited for today's guest. I mean, we're talking about a wealth of knowledge, people, and I am really excited to get into some very, very cool topics. But of course, before we do that, we always have to take a moment because we couldn't do these cool podcasts without our amazing sponsor. And here's a quick message from that sponsor. For years, I've been saying that you have to process your way to profitability, and no one knows that better than the folks at Repair 360. You all know how important it is to have a fast, streamlined used car reconditioning process. Remember, time kills profit. Getting a used car frontline ready in less time while providing transparent communication between departments is what Repair 360 is all about. With Repair 360's automated used car recon manager, you will drive recon times down while giving sales the visibility they need to stop complaining. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about that part. Anyways, you have to check out their website at repair360.com and see how they can revolutionize your reconditioning process. All right, guys. I told you I had a great guest, and I do. I am so excited. I've been looking forward all week. I'm serious. I've been reading about them, understanding the business. I have the one, the only, the oh so famous Les Silver with me. I can see Les. Les, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Well, with that kind of build-up, I better have something worthwhile to say.
Les, I'm sorry. I was giggling myself a little bit too, but I know. Look, I'm so excited. I didn't even get a chance to even say it. Guys, we have Les Silver with Dynatron and KeepsCorp.com. Les, man, thank you for taking the time to jam with me. I hope that intro was big and grand enough. Was that okay? Did that work?
No problem at all.
Thanks, Les. I really appreciate it. Hey, Les, we're going to have a ton of fun of getting really diving in deep into some very cool topics today. But Les, what I'd like to do is I love kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story. Because like, I got to be honest, I'm always fundamentally interested and just fascinated how somebody kind of stumbles their way into the automotive industry and just decides to make it a lifelong career. So let's start there, Les. How did you start in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
Well, that is a good story, actually. I went to college and got a degree in, of all things, mathematics. And what do you do with a math degree? Not much, except maybe being a teacher. But I stumbled into a course in my last year on computer science. And this was in the early 70s. And it was a new field at the time, and one that sounded like it might have a little bit of promise. As it turned out. So when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I looked into going back to school and seeing if I can get a master's degree in computer science and make computer science my career, which is what I did. I went back to school, took 2 years and got a master's degree, needed cash. So I tried to find a part-time job and ended up working for all things in a car dealership. A friend of mine was the controller. He said, come on, you can sell cars, you can make a few bucks. And I did that full-time for a couple of years while I was in school, part-time. And then when I graduated, ended up working part-time for a number of years as an F&I manager in the dealership. that's where the math degree came in handy, was I could add up the payments and get to the right uh, to the right payment number for the customer, which in the case of the others in the dealership that I worked at, that was a major feat. Uh, when I finished off the computer science degree, I went to work in the data center associated with the Manitoba government. And the guy that hired me was interesting. The thing that he liked most about my resume was I had sales experience. The fact that I had computer science experience was less relevant to him because he was looking to start a marketing group within the data center and thought that the experience that I had selling cars would be helpful in coming up with that type of a program. So that's what I did.
Wow.
I went and worked for the government for a total of 6 years, built a marketing group, and had a really good time. Enjoyed that immensely. As it turned out, I ended up quitting the government and working for a consulting firm who developed software for the industry. And the first major computer program I did was driver's licensing for the province of Manitoba. I'm a Canadian, grew up in Winnipeg. If you don't know Winnipeg,
Oof.
don't go.
Cold. That's some cold right there, man.
That's cold in the winter, hot, muggy, zillions of mosquitoes in the summer. If you can survive Winnipeg, you can survive anything. So that's where I was. That's where I stayed for a while. Ended up moving around with this software consulting firm. Went from Winnipeg to Edmonton to Calgary, and kind of by a fluke, was approached by a company that was based in Hayward, California, which is just outside of Oakland, who had a shop scheduling and loading piece of software. And they were looking to find a person that was going to provide that into the Canadian market. And they were traveling in Canada. The company that I was working with at the time was a software consulting company called System House. They saw an ad that we had in the airline magazine and landed in Calgary, where I was living, called the office and just started chatting. And I had the experience of working in a car dealership. I had the experience of working with automated technology and computer systems. Seemed like a good match. And I became the Canadian distributor for a company that ultimately became NewGen Results Corporation. Our first product was shop scheduling and loading. And that was a fairly sophisticated product for its time.
Sure. What year was that, Les? What year was that exactly?
82.
Oh, yeah.
This was a real-time scheduling system, and scheduling and loading was the big issue of the time. People were lining up sometimes for hours, or sometimes waiting for weeks to get into the dealership because the capacity of the shop was governing the ability to do the work.
Of course.
And it was just it was a time when there just wasn't enough capacity and people were very dissatisfied. So scheduling and loading became a hot topic.
So it's kind of like today, right?
Right. From what we'll talk about, you'll see that there's always a weak spot in the industry that is a constraint for the dealership in what they can do in delivering service to their customers. And sometimes it's capacity is the problem. Sometimes it's the quality is the problem. Sometimes they can't sell enough work. It's a problem. So you have to be flexible in coming up with what is the problem of the day.
You know what, Les, I think that's a perfect segue kind of into our first topic, right, of today, which is, really the quality of the customer experience, and I'm super fascinated to kind of see your perspective on this. If you've seen, I know over the years you've seen the good the bad, and the ugly. And I'm not just talking about the movie. I'm sure you've seen you've seen it all. And I would love to kind of get your take, on what makes a quality customer experience, because I find the customer experience very unique because it happens regardless if we're intentional about it or not. But there is a way to create a quality one, and I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Well, we found that to maximize revenue, there are three areas of focus that you have to be concerned about.
Mhm.
And at the top of the list is quality. But what do we mean when we talk about quality? There are two significant aspects to quality. One is what's called technical quality. Do you have technicians who can fix cars? Sounds pretty fundamental,
Right.
but in many cases that's an issue in itself, that the quality of the work being performed just isn't satisfactory to fix the problem. And there's a whole list of issues regarding technicians, technician training, job assignments, the things that determine whether at the end of the day, it used to be fixed right the first time on time.
Yes.
Are you able to get the car completed and get it fixed? However, very often that isn't enough. If you can fix the car, the customer will come back maybe if they have to, but if the experience is poor, if
Mhm.
you're left waiting in line when you arrive for half an hour, nobody acknowledges you, if the write-up process is clunky and takes too long, if the status process is poor, where you can't figure out where the car is during the course of the day, if the pickup process is bad and you end up waiting in line, adding insult to injury, waiting in line to pick up the car after everything has been done and you're trying to pay the bill, that's problematic. There are many consumer touch points that determine whether the customer comes away feeling, wow, that was good. They treated me well,
Yeah.
just as opposed to, yeah, they were able to fix the car. Fixing the car is the table stakes. You got to
No,
be able to do that. But to have satisfied customers, you have to have an experience where they go, wow, that was terrific. And
you're so right, Les. I think for anybody out there watching, listening right now, this is really a good note taking point, right? Like it's not enough that we just meet the customer's expectations, right? The customer to be considered a quality experience, it's not like what Les is saying here. It's just not about just meeting that expectation. Okay, you fixed my car. Congrats, do you want a cookie? That's what I came here for. That's kind of the minimum expectation. I think that quality of experience, the quality experience, right, comes from exceeding the customer's expectations. And I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on how we can do that.
well, first of all, it's where are the customer touch points?
Mm-hmm.
And just stepping back and understanding, get a piece of paper and make a list. What is the process from start to finish?
Yes.
And, typically there are 13, 14 steps that make up the service write-up process. Uh, what are you going to do to distinguish each one of those in such a way that, for example, if all you do when the customer arrives, say, yeah, tell me what your problem is, you're missing an opportunity to get to know that customer on a personal level, to
Mm-hmm.
develop some rapport. There's a concept that I call the 1 minute insurance policy. Spend a minute just talking to the customer about what you can see he likes. What's his hobby? Does he have golf clubs in the back seat? Does he have hockey equipment? What are the things that look like are his passions? And spend a minute just chatting about that. Some will think, well, that's just a waste of time. But in fact, it's not.
No.
Because at the end of the day, if you do that, and if you're half an hour late in delivery, you'll have bought some insurance and you'll be in a position to still have a satisfied customer, even though you might not have had everything go off without a hitch.
No, Les, I love this. I love this because you're absolutely right. How easy is it for me to go back to that customer with the golf clubs in the back of their vehicle and say, "Hey, look, man, we're right on the back nine. We're just running a little behind. The people in front of us, little too boozy. So like it's just we're gonna be another 30 minutes, right? Like if I was to come out and say to that kid, see, I personalize, he's gonna get a crack out of it. He's gonna a little bit of a laugh out of it. But I love, that's to your point, right? You created this 1 minute insurance policy. I love this idea. And like this is a great idea. I really like it. Sorry.
The customer wants to be treated as a human being.
Mm.
He has little joy coming to see you in the first place, because as far as he's concerned, it would have been better if he didn't. There's nothing more painful than having your car done, unless you're talking about having the dentist do some drilling. It's often a very dispassionate and difficult and often costly experience where they wish they weren't there. What can you do to make it as pleasant as you possibly can? And the thing that when you look at the two aspects of quality of quality service, fixing it right the first time versus the quality of the customer's experience, you'll in fact get more mileage out of creating a customer experience, because he'll give you a break if there's a relationship. But if he waited 20 minutes to get written up and it was just, yeah, tell me what it is, write it down, send him on his way, you bought no credit for any future possible problems.
I like
And,
that.
it just works so much better if you treat the customer. You've often heard the saying, treat the customer as if it was your relative. What would you do if it was your mother or your father, your great uncle or your aunt?
I don't know, Les. You should come to my place for Thanksgiving, man. I don't know if I want to use that analogy. I'm just messing with you. But no, I really do dig what you're kind of laying down here, and I think for everybody out there watching, and listening, it's not one big thing that creates a quality customer experience. It is a intentional little things, all right, that add up and make up those customer experiences. I've had the opportunity to audit, many dealership reviews over the years, and what I found interesting in a lot of these Google reviews that I've had opportunity to audit is that it was one little thing that really kind of made the difference. It was, it was remembering the customer's name, or how they took their coffee, or that to your point. And I love your strategy. Really, the 1 minute, the 1 minute insurance policy. It's these little things that make up this big experience. Is there any other little thing that you'd like to share with the audience that is just like, hey, you got to do this one because this is a solid? Is there any other little ones you'd add out there?
Well, at the front end, it's the write-up. At the back end, it's the pickup and delivery. And how little time and effort is spent in making sure the pickup and delivery is a quality experience is tragic as well, because now you're adding insult to injury. You've kept the guy probably longer than he would have wanted in the first place. And now just to get his car back, where is it? One of the things that we have found is knowing where the cars are, knowing where the keys to the cars are, is a huge impediment to customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And that ties into not only the quality of the customer experience, but it ties into the efficiency of the technician in completing the work. How much time is wasted during the course of the day running around trying to find cars and keys? It's enormous.
It's huge.
Huge.
And it's those kind of little things. When I was listening to you say that, Les, it reminded me of that the scene from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I don't know if you remember that. Remember when he's like trying to pick up his rental car, and it's like it's in the lot back there, and he ends up having to walk like 7 miles and cross another highway, and he gets soaked by oncoming traffic, and it's just like, and I know it's a little extreme what I'm trying to picture for people here, but I will say I have serviced my vehicle at some places that are not far off from that. Pretty much like, here's your key, you're in slot B62. Like,
you're in the back corner of the lot.
Right.
Terrible.
Hey, I look, I think for everybody watching, listening, I think you can kind of hear what me and Les are kind of talking about here when it comes to quality customer experience. It is something that needs to be intentional, and it is those little things And I'm with you. One of the first impressions, it's the pickup and the delivery. If you can optimize that and improve that, I think that's just going to get better. I want to. There's another topic here, and I want to kind of segue us over a little bit, because this one I'm really kind of getting excited about, because I think it's so relevant right now. Is Les, you wanted to kind of talk about optimization of pricing. And I know this is a hot button for a lot of people out there watching and listening to the show right now, because it's so relevant. So I'd love to kind of get your take on kind of best practices for optimization of pricing.
We have a concept we call the perfect price.
Mm.
What is the perfect price? It's a price that's not too high where you're impacting on customer retention,
Mm-hmm.
and not too low where you're leaving gross on the table. Are you intentionally thinking about that when you set your pricing? First of all, what's the competition doing in your market? And that's aftermarket competition as well as other dealerships that may be nearby. You need to know that to be able to gauge how well the price is going to be accepted in the marketplace so that it doesn't impact on retention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, the perception of price and the reality of price are often very, very different. In many cases, dealerships are very concerned that they're charging too much, but when they go and mystery shop their competitors, they find that they aren't, particularly when you look at the price of the job. There's a lot of misconceptions around pricing when it comes to things like hourly rates, as an example, where the aftermarket may quote an hourly rate that's somewhat significantly lower than what the dealership is charging as an hourly rate.
Sure.
But the hourly rate is only one component of what makes up that price. Because you take the hourly rate and then you take from whatever labor time guide you're using, the number of hours that the job pays, and you multiply them together, and you end up with a combined price of the time it takes to do the job and the rate per hour. And it's the total job price that really is important.
Yes,
And
we got to look at it holistically. Yes, 100%.
people often ignore that and leave an impression with the customer that the price is too high because all they did was quote, well, I'm $130 an hour, $140 an hour. They go, oh, well, the aftermarket's 100. It must be cheaper. Add it together, the amount of time multiplied by the hourly rate to get to the job price,
Mm-hmm.
and then be proud of it. We are very strong proponents of we call dare to compare pricing, where you have a big board in the service drive with the competitors in the market, a cross section of products that are typical products that are being sold by the dealership and by the competitors, and be proud and show your price up there. Sometimes it's the least expensive, sometimes it's not, but it doesn't matter. The fact that you can proudly
Yes.
show what the price is and leave the customer to judge, he'll pay an extra $2 or $3 or $4 here and there for something that you are able to provide because of the combination of things that go into getting the job done
Mm-hmm.
and creating the experience makes it hopefully worth the value of what you're charging. And we have found that there is most often a very significant gap between what the price is that the market will bear and what the price is that the dealership is charging, that is money that's just being purely left on the table. It's probably from a financial standpoint, the biggest opportunity and the starting point opportunity, because without doing anything differently other than knowing what the competitive environment is and charging the appropriate rate, you can impact your shop literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in bottom line per year.
Tons. And I think it's such a great exercise. I mean, I remember, when I first took over my first dealership, and it, that was one of the first exercises. But it was funny. I actually pushed my team to go even a little bit farther with it, not just call around to get the pricing. I actually had them send a car, and get the oil change done, because I also wanted to see what people were also recommending. I think too often our industry gets so focused on, hey, I'm a Nissan dealer and there's the other two Nissan dealers and those are my competition. We forget that, the average dealership has something like 13 or 14 like non-franchise entities in each of their markets going for that same dollar. And this is the Mr. Lubes, the Jiffy Lubes, the Midases, the Joe's Auto Shops, the whatever it is out there, and if you don't really take the time, like Les is saying here, guys, if you don't take the time to really do your market research, how are you ever going to come up with that perfect pricing? I mean, we were surprised when we went through that exercise, Les, especially when we were sending out the same car. So here's a funny one for you, Les. That car's tires got rotated 4 different times. I'm not saying anything, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it was funny, I said, if they recommend it, I want you to do it because I want it on the receipt. We actually framed each of these receipts so people could actually see what was being recommended. I thought it was funny that we 8 different shops, 4 of them rotated the tires, even though they had already been rotated. Anyways, I digress. Continue, please.
Well, that's a whole other area.
I know.
When it comes to, most dealerships will do a multi-point inspection on a vehicle as a standard. We do this when we take care of the car. What doesn't happen very often is a comparison and development of the skills of the technician to make sure that whatever is being recommended is in fact needed. And what we have done for years as an exercise is we'll take a car. You mentioned, having a car, taking it to different shops. We have a car that typically would be a used vehicle, 50, 60,000 miles.
Sure.
We bring it into the shop, and in the single shop, we have every technician look at that and fill out an inspection form.
Ooh, I like that.
On that vehicle.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, and then compare at the end of the day, buy some pizza, spring for dinner, and sit down with the guys and show them, here's the inspection form, and here, same car, 40% of the time it was green, 30% of the time it was yellow, 40% of the time it was red. How could that be?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, put yourself in the customer's shoes, where the content of the inspection is the luck of the draw on which technician you get. How impactful is that on quality experience and quality of getting the work performed when there's no standard for what constitutes a failed brake or a caution brake or a good brake? Mm-hmm. And, that's an exercise that we strongly recommend. In fact, for years, in one of the companies that I was involved in, we ran a national contest on vehicle inspection quality. And we had it done at the local level, at the single dealership. The best technician would move on to a regional. And then finally, we brought them all into Vegas for a national championship. And it was awesome. And it was eye-opening experience because
I can imagine.
Just how difficult it is to know what to trust when there's that level of inconsistency.
No, I mean, you're so right on this, and I think anybody out there watching and listening right now, man, I'd never done one of these, Les, and I kind of want to go back and do them because I had a pretty mixed bag of technicians. I had some juniors, I had a few seniors, I had a couple master technicians. One we called Yoda. He could put his hand on a car and tell you what was wrong with it. I don't know. If that, you can imagine his inspection lists were pretty interesting. But no, you're 100% right. I mean, think about just how much opportunity, how much money is being lost because I got 18 guys in the back, all of them inspecting a vehicle slightly different. Look, I never ran through that exercise. I wish I totally did. If you're watching and listening right now, 100% you need to do that. And actually, that's probably a perfect segue kind of into our last topic today, because we wanted to talk about managing capacity, and boy, does that have a lot to do with who you have as far as a team goes. But I'd love to kind of get your take on best practices for managing capacity.
Well, the first thing to recognize is that capacity is a constraint. You can only sell what you can deliver. And if you don't keep sight of that, you find yourself in real deep problems where cars are being carried over for days, and you just don't realize that capacity is a governor on what you can sell. What does that mean from a day-to-day basis? It means that when you're planning your shop, you should make sure that you've got spare capacity, enough technicians, or enough hours of operation, or enough efficiency from the technicians you've got to get the work done in a reasonable amount of time, hopefully within a single day. And just being able to structure the shop in such a way that you are aware of that. If the service advisor has a vehicle inspection that he wants to perform, and there's a recommendation that comes out of that vehicle inspection, the first thing they look at is it going to get done? And they're not even going to recommend it if it can't get done.
That's true.
Because unfortunately, the service advisor, a large chunk of his goal is to eliminate pain. And the pain associated with missing a customer promise time or having the customer have to hold over the car is so great that they won't sell if they can't do it. You want to structure the shop in such a way that you understand how much capacity do I have, and have spare capacity for things that are unforeseen, so that you have the ability to be able to do vehicle inspections, create ASRs, and sell the customer the things that are legitimately needed by managing the capacity in an appropriate way. Of the capacity drivers, number of technicians is the single most important. You have as many technicians as you can handle. And often it means going in a scarce market and finding technicians or growing your own.
Yes.
And that's probably the preferred route, is to be able to have enough balance of work that you have enough work for junior people to start with, that you can bring them into the organization and grow them at their capability, so that you've got enough ability to be able to have a shop full of quality techs. The hours of operation, often you can get more capacity out of a shop, the same number of stalls, but have enough technicians that it can work, instead of a standard 8-hour day, work a 4-day, 10-hour work week and rotate them.
Oh my gosh, I am so glad you said this. Sorry, Les, I have to take a moment because I really want to dive deep into this, because I did exactly this, Les, and everybody said I was effing crazy for doing this. But I mean, Les, I had technicians wrapped around my corner who wanted to come do a 4-day, 3-day off work week. I'm so happy right now that you said this, because I got criticized for years for trying to execute this. But please continue.
It adds 25% capacity to the shop.
It does. I know.
And, no more brick and mortar, no additional, you do have additional staff because, they are rotating through.
Yes.
But they love it. The technicians that get a chance to work in those kinds of shops, often it's a selling point for them to come to work with you, because many have families and would love that extra family day, instead of, and 10 hours, 3 day, 12 hours is a bit much. We've tried to find the point where you're not going to impact on the guy just gets just too damn tired in a 12-hour day. But 10 hours, very doable, adds 25% of the capacity. So you got how many technicians do I have? How many hours are they working? And then how much work can they generate?
Yes.
And so many factors that drive the efficiency of the technician, from parts availability to parts delivery into the stall, to where's the car, where are the keys, the appropriate training on the technical skills, proper mentorship, from within the shop with others that they can trust. All of these things impact on capacity. And if you can improve your capacity, or your efficiency rather, by 20, 25%, That, combine it with another 20 to 25% with a rotating work week, add an extra few technicians. Now you've got capacity available to be able to drive growth. If you ask a dealer principal, do you want to grow your shop? 99 out of 100, the answer is yes, definitely. So how are you going to do that if you don't have a plan to add capacity? If you can't add capacity, you can't add work. And they got to recognize that those are the quality, the work that they're selling, and the overall capacity are interrelated.
It's
And
all connected.
they're all connected. And if you screw up one, you're inevitably screwing up the other ones.
Well, like I said, Les, I am so excited that you brought that up as a great strategy for it. Because you're right. Not only are you increasing your 25%, but I would say our efficiency. I had happier people. All right. Like I had people that were just, they would get on a job, and instead of, because they were working a little bit later, we could juggle time around. If I had a guy ripping apart a motor, I didn't have to take him off to go have him do an oil change, because we had those hours there where they could actually commit themselves to completing that job. So, I'm with you. Look, not only does it increase in capacity, it definitely increased efficiency, but it also created a culture of a place that people wanted to come work, because it was very rare to find a mechanic position that balanced both kind of work and family, and that's exactly what that does. Unless, I'm so glad you brought that up. I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time today, and I'd love to continue just picking your brain for like another hour, because I know you got all kinds of more nuggets out there, but you have definitely shared some amazing strategies and nuggets with us today. But Les, before I let you go, for everybody that's been watching this show and really just thoroughly kind of enjoying your insights and your experience, what's the best way for someone to connect with you?
I'll give you my cell phone number. Feel free to call. It's area code 619-204-5556. Or you can reach me by email at les.silver@keepscorp. That's KEEPSCORP.com.
Awesome. Hey, Les, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun, and truly do appreciate your experience and insight into the business. Les, you have yourself an amazing day. Thank you.
Same to you, Jason. Thank you.
And for everybody out there watching and listening, we thank you. And if you have found this show to be valuable, the best thing you can do is share, please, because sharing is caring. So share the episode, tag a friend, tag a coworker. All right. It helps us continue to do more and great shows just like this. Thank you for everyone for watching. You guys have an amazing day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.